It's the Kyle Hyman Show on Redeemer Radio.
This is Kyle Hyman, and joining us to talk about a book that's available, actually a whole series of books, but the most recent one is on the Annunciation. It's going to be great for parents, grandparents, to have these for your kids. They're Little Catholic Clubhouse. You can find them at littlecatholicClubhouse.com. And joining us is the authors and the illustrator, Mike and Sarah Zimmerman. Thanks for being here.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Do you have a favorite children's book, author, or book that you really enjoy?
I mean, there's so many out there that really kind of touch on things that we really try to share with our kids. I mean, anything that really kind of gets them engaged is going to be the favorite at the moment. And sometimes, you know, my favorite isn't always going to be their favorite. Sometimes it's going to be whatever they're into and striking their fancy and getting their attention. And I could have something in the wings going, this is so great, and this is going to teach you a great moral, and you really need to listen to this. And like, no, the pictures are boring. Thanks. I'd rather look at this.
Yeah.
So it's usually trying to strike that fancy of in that middle, finding something that's appealing to them and colorful and engaging and that actually has a good moral, you know, not just about a rabbit trying to find its next carrot or something like that. So
sometimes I finish reading books to my kids and I was like, how did this ever get published? Like there's no point to this. It wasn't clever or interesting at all. What inspired you in writing these books? Because that's not how I would classify these books. They're great. I can't wait to read these to my kids, actually.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I you know, honestly, we've seen the same thing. Sometimes you go into, you know, Barnes & Noble or into a good Catholic bookstore and you pick up something and the drawings are just so, you know, blasé, and you feel that, you know, anyone could have drawn. It's like, oh, how did this get picked up? Or then you read the story and it's just like, you're falling asleep, and that doesn't really do good for a bedtime story. Yeah. But I guess what really inspired us was just that, you know, we were looking for good books to really kind of read to our kids and really teach aspects of the Catholic faith, because there are great Christian books and there are great books that teach morals that don't have God in them at all, but there were aspects and beautiful things about the Catholic faith that we wanted to share with our kids, but in a kid's way, in a beautiful, color and engaging way. And we couldn't find anything like that. We would go into bookstores and just like you're saying, I mean, in no disrespect to any other books or anything out there, it's just like it could be a really great topic or story, but then the drawings were just so blasé, or very the opposite. They were colorful, but then it didn't hit on what we wanted. So that inspired us to first telling stories to our own kids. And you know, after a while, after we're making up these characters in our own stories, then it led to, well, what do they look like? And then we started drawing them for them. And then before you know it, we're putting a book together for them. And that was our first foray into it. Us going to FedEx Kinko's and during the night and putting this book together is kind of a thing for our family. And then it just takes off from there. And so we just kind of fell in love with the characters that we created with our children. And then it just kind of grew and grew. And we're really excited to share it with others.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the characters and the concept of Little Catholic Clubhouse?
We just first filled in names. They do reference the Gospels. There are versions of it. We even changed like Maddie to like Matthew, and so Maddie is Matthew, but then we have
Marcus.
Pete and Maria, and so we have Peter and Mary as well. And we really didn't intend to have backgrounds on them, but we do have bios in our books now that tell their whole background, but we can really thank that our children for that, because they were like, well, what's Maria's family like? What's her favorite food? What's her favorite? And so they kind of became these cute little characters because of our kids, because they wanted to know who these people were and these kids to who they can relate to. And I've actually heard a lot of times that that's one of the favorite parts of the book to other children. So it's kind of cute that happened. But we really wanted it to be Catholic kids, so that we give our children or anyone who's reading the book to a child someone to relate to and to make it cool to be Catholic, like in a group that they belong to. And I think that's why we designed it. And we have different children in the book of all different kind of walks of life too. So that was important to us too. We can include everyone.
Is Father Q modeled after any priest that you know?
Maybe a conglomerate of all my favorite priests together. But no, I mean, in actuality, the name for Father Q comes from my little overly nerdy theological side when we were talking about, like, who should be the name of this priest who's going to come on this screen in their clubhouse to kind of give them advice. I was, really getting deep into theology and study of the scriptures, and we're talking about where did the scriptures come from and this and that. And then we started talking about the Q source, for the scriptures and how, there are parts of the scriptures that came from this. So Q, Quell, German, and then it's Father Q, and my little salute to my biblical nerdiness. But
well, and I think even like the idea of the clubhouse, just reading through this, and the watches have alarms and they go in this clubhouse and then they're sent back in time. And I think kids would really get engaged with that. And they love the idea of a clubhouse, a little hangout and getting together with other kids. What is the approach of kind of providing something entertainment and drawing them into the story to be able to explain some of these Catholic truths?
Yeah, I think that was really key. Is that, like, I mean, that's a struggle, for adults and children alike. Sometimes it's pulling out the moral and the ethic of the scriptural story, and then how does that even apply to my life? And so to be able to show the kids that, and so not only answer, because every story, of course, starts with one of the kids in the clubhouse, them having an issue or a problem in their life, but then going back, and then having them travel in time back into the scriptural story, seeing that ethic, seeing that moral come to life within that story, and then them coming back and discussing together, oh, that's how I apply that to my life. That's what my mom was talking about when she said, I didn't know the true meaning of Christmas, or about, like, what God's will is in my life. That was really cool for them to see, and they can now not only see the moral in the story, but then align themselves with these biblical characters and align themselves and see the aspects of Mary that we fall in love with and we teach about in the church. And so I think it was really important for them to see the physicality of them going into it and being able to apply it.
And I think they're pretty dense in the content. There's actually a lot that you cover and talk about, and I think parents might actually find that they're learning something, if not learning truths that they didn't know before, at least learning ways to explain it on a different level to not just their kids, but maybe non-Catholic friends and things like that. Was there any of that intended to actually maybe evangelize to parents a little bit too?
It was very intended. The reason we did that, and we actually had talked about that, two birds, one stone, because I was born and raised in the faith, and Mike was a convert, and I honestly didn't start learning a ton about the faith until he did. And it's because I feel that a lot of Catholics have their last education in our faith around sophomore year or freshman year in high school, and then a lot of them don't go back, and we don't really know why we do a lot of things that we do. And it comes to a point where it's embarrassing to ask, because you're like, oh, we just do that. And It wasn't until we started reading again, or I started reading into the Bible and trying to apply the moral and stuff like that, that I ended up learning a lot more. And I'm like, you know what? Parents read to their kids, so we're going to make this as simple as possible to re-evangelize the parents as well, because we're going to make it so simple that they know why we do it and the message of some of the biggest things in our Catholic faith.
We're talking about the Little Catholic Clubhouse. The edition that I have with me is the Annunciation, and we're talking with the authors, Mike and Sarah Zimmerman. Sarah, you also did the illustrations on it, is that correct?
Yes, they did.
And what age range would you say that these would be good to read to? What kids?
We typically suggest it for about 3 to 8, because they get different things out of it. The bright colors and stuff were designed for the younger ones, and we kind of designed the characters to be like, more eye-catching with big eyes and stuff like that. So our youngest daughter kept grabbing them at 2, and she obviously can't read, so she's just kept looking through the pictures. Our oldest son, he's 9, and he's a Mike Jr. He's very theological and stuff, and he actually grasp the message, and it's very cool to watch them apply it. They're like, oh, well, when Maria did this in the book, and they bring it back, and so they're getting the bigger concept of it. And they also are designed, to be in classrooms for the teachers and students to talk further. There's also a points to ponder section in the back that asks questions to make sure that the morals and lessons are getting understood by both teacher and student. And we did that, too, to make sure that we further the faith discussion. And so I guess it just depends on the age, but there is something for everyone, and they get different parts out of the book.
And this one on the Annunciation, it's not just about the Annunciation, but also you have some lessons in there, how we can learn from this and apply some things to our lives. Can you talk a little bit about some of the kind of teaching points that you were able to hit on in the book?
Yeah, so when we get into the Annunciation, of course, we wanted to early on do a book about Mary. And then when we sat down to really do a book about Mary, we're like, oh my goodness, she is way too big of a topic for one book. And so we're thinking about doing more of a Marian series, I guess. And so we stuck with the Annunciation to start. And so there are parts to it that really kind of apply in different contexts. Of course, the story of the Annunciation, it'll have Maria as, our clubhouse kid who's really kind of having an issue in her life and, trying to understand what God's will is. And then we can see that within the Annunciation story itself with our Blessed Mother. But there are other aspects to it that, will come out in the story as you learn more about Mary, about her fidelity, about faith, about trust, about these aspects of Mary that are so beautiful that we can talk about. And so when you start to look through the questions in the back, more things can be revealed, and we try to make some of the questions a little bit more open-ended so that they can inspire even more questions and more discussion of the parent and child.
And I think, too, as parents ourselves, we're faced with trying to teach our kids about disappointment. And that was one of our biggest parts of writing this book, too, is trusting God when things don't always go your way and learning to trust Him that He knows best for you. And even though you tried your hardest, sometimes things don't always work out. Mm-hmm. But we wanted it to be where we wrote it so that they can also look for the silver linings in life when it doesn't seem to be going your way, too.
And it looks like this is the third in the series so far. Is that correct? And what are some of the other topics that you talk about?
Yeah, so this is the third in the series. The first one was the Little Catholic Clubhouse and the True Meaning of Christmas. The second was the Little Catholic Clubhouse and the Eucharist. And then this being Little Catholic Clubhouse and the Annunciation. So, of course, there's so many more Catholic topics to address, but, try to address some of the big ones right off the bat is where our goal was.
What are your plans moving forward?
Moving forward, we want to continue. I think we're going to do some more, of course, with Mary. We're going to do some of the other, we want to stick with the very Catholic things first, because there are other beautiful Christian books out there, but the very things that are very Catholic that we wanted to give parents the tools to teach their kids about, whether it's the rosary or whether, it's about the saints, things that are very Catholic we're going to start with. And we wanted to make parents feel comfortable talking about those things. And that's why every one of them has our bishop's imprimatur right in the beginning. It's like, that you're not going to go off the rails teaching about the faith with this because it's right in the beginning. And we're working with our clergy and our bishop, right away. So that one, the Annunciation that you just got in your hands, it just got the imprimatur from our new bishop because we just got a new bishop here in Nashville. And so it took a little delay, but all three of them are ready to go.
All right. Well, where can people get a copy of the book? Where can they go for more information?
Absolutely. So www.littlecatholicClubhouse.com is our website. You can view all the titles there. You can purchase them, learn more about the characters. There's some fun stuff on there. Our friends over at resourcecatholic.com have our books as well. And then, Amazon, Etsy, those normal ones too, the Barnes & Noble.
All right. Again, it's called Little Catholic Clubhouse. 3 books. Go check them out. Thank you so much, Mike and Sarah, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.